Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 94. Chapter 94. It was getting dusk when Prince Andrew and Pierre drove up to the front entrance of the house at Bald Hills. As they approached the house, Prince Andrew, with a smile, drew Pierre's attention to a commotion going on at the back porch. A woman, bent with age, with a wallet on her back, and a short, long-haired young man in a black garment, had rushed back to the gate on seeing the carriage driving up. Two women ran out after them, and all four, looking round at the carriage, ran in dismay up the steps of the back porch. "Those are Mary's God's folk," said Prince Andrew. "They have mistaken us for my father. This is the one matter in which she disobeys him. He orders these pilgrims to be driven away, but she receives them." "But what are God's folk?" asked Pierre. Prince Andrew had no time to answer. The servants came out to meet them, and he asked where the old prince was and whether he was expected back soon. The old prince had gone to town and was expected back any minute. Prince Andrew led Pierre to his own apartments, which were always kept in perfect order and readiness for him in his father's house. He himself went to the nursery. "Let us go and see my sister," he said to Pierre when he returned. "I have not found her yet. She is hiding now, sitting with her God's folk. It will serve her right. She will be confused, but you will see her God's folk. It's really very curious." "What are God's folk?" asked Pierre. "Come, and you'll see for yourself." Princess Mary really was disconcerted, and red patches came on her face when they went in. In her snug room, with lamps burning before the icon stand, a young lad with a long nose and long hair, wearing a monk's cassock, sat on the sofa beside her, behind a samovar. Near them, in an armchair, sat a thin, shriveled old woman with a meek expression on her childlike face. "Andrew, why didn't you warn me?" said the princess with mild reproach, as she stood before her pilgrims like a hen before her chickens. "Jamais de vous voir. Je suis très content de vous voir," she said to Pierre, as he kissed her hand. She had known him as a child, and now his friendship with Andrew, his misfortune with his wife, and above all his kindly, simple face, disposed her favorably toward him. She looked at him with her beautiful, radiant eyes and seemed to say, "I like you very much, but please don't laugh at my people." After exchanging the first greetings, they sat down. "Ah, and Ivanushka is here too," said Prince Andrew, glancing with a smile at the young pilgrim. "Andrew," said Princess Mary imploringly. "You need to know that she's a woman," said Prince Andrew to Pierre. "Andrew, in the name of God," Princess Mary repeated. It was evident that Prince Andrew's ironical tone towards the pilgrim and Princess Mary's helpless attempts to protect them were their customary, long-established relations on the matter. "Mais, ma bonne amie," said Prince Andrew. "On the contrary, you should be grateful to me for what I explained to Pierre on your intimacy with this young man." "Really?" said Pierre, gazing over his spectacles with curiosity and seriousness, for which Princess Mary was especially grateful to him, into Ivanushka's face, who, seeing that she was being spoken about, looked round at them, all with crafty eyes. Princess Mary's embarrassment on her people's account was quite unnecessary. They were not in the least abashed. The old woman, lowering her eyes but casting side glances at the newcomers, had turned her cup upside down and placed a nibbled bit of sugar beside it, and sat quietly in her armchair, though hoping to be offered another cup of tea. Ivanushka, sipping out of her saucer, looked with sly womanish eyes from under her brows at the young men. "Where have you been? To Kiev?" Prince Andrew asked the old woman. "I have, good sir," she answered garrulously. "Just at Christmas time I was deemed worthy to partake of the holy and heavenly sacrament at the shrine of the saint. And now I'm from Kolyazin, master, where a great and wonderful blessing has been revealed." "And was Ivanushka with you?" "I go by myself, benefactor," said Ivanushka, trying to speak in a bass voice. "I only come from Pelagia in Yukonovo." Pelageya interrupted her companion. She evidently wished to tell what she had seen. "In Kolyazin, master, a wonderful blessing has been revealed." "Ah, yes, what is it? Some new relics?" asked Prince Andrew. "Andrew, do leave off," said Princess Mary. "Don't tell him, Pelageya." "No, why not, my dear? Why shouldn't I? I like him. He is kind. He is one of God's chosen. He's a benefactor. He once gave me 10 rubles, I remember. When I was in Kiev, Crazy Cyril came to me. He's one of God's own and goes barefoot summer and winter, and he says, 'Why are you not going to the right place? Go to Kolyazin, where a wonder-working icon of the Holy Mother of God has been revealed.' On hearing those words, I said goodbye to the holy folk and went." All were silent. Only the pilgrim woman went on in measured tones, drawing in her breath. "So I come, master, and the people say to me, 'A great blessing has been revealed. Holy oil trickles from the cheeks of our blessed Mother, the Holy Virgin Mother of God.'" All right, you can tell us afterwards," said Princess Mary, flushing. "Let me ask her," said Pierre. "Did you see it yourselves?" he inquired. "Oh, yes, master. I was found worthy. Such a brightness on the face, like the light of heaven, and from the Blessed Mother's cheek it drops and drops." "But dear me, that must be a fraud," said Pierre naively, who had listened attentively to the pilgrim. "Oh, master, what are you saying?" she exclaimed, turning to Princess Mary for support. "They impose on the people," he repeated. "Lord Jesus Christ," explained the pilgrim woman, crossing herself. "Only don't speak so, master. There was a general who did not believe and said, 'The monks cheat,' and as soon as he said it, he went blind. And he dreamed that the Holy Virgin Mother of Kiev catacombs came to him and said, 'Believe in me, and I will make you whole.' So he begged, 'Take me to her, take me to her.' It's the real truth, I'm telling you. I saw it myself. So he was brought, quite blind, straight to her. And he goes up to her and falls down and says, 'Make me whole,' says he. 'And I'll give thee what the Tsar bestowed on me.' I saw it myself, master. The star is fixed into the icon. Well, and what do you think? He received his sight. It's a sin to speak so. God will punish you," she said to Pierre. "How did the star get into the icon?" Pierre asked. "And was the Holy Mother promoted to the rank of general?" said Prince Andrew with a smile. Pelageya suddenly grew quite pale and clasped her hands. "Oh, master, master, what a sin!" "And you, who have a son," she began, her pallor suddenly turning to a vivid red. "Master, what have you said? God forgive you." And she crossed herself again. "Lord forgive him. My dear, what does it mean?" she asked, turning to Princess Mary. She got up and, almost crying, began to arrange her wallet. She evidently felt frightened and ashamed to have to accept charity in a house where such things could be said, and was at that time sorry to have now forego the charity of this house. "Now, why do you need it?" said Prince Mary. "Why did you come to me?" "Come, I was only joking," said Pierre. "Princess, my word, I did not want to offend him. I did not mean anything. I was only joking," he said, smiling shyly and trying to efface his offense. "It was all my fault, and Andrew was only joking." Pelageya stopped doubtfully, but in Pierre's face there was such a look of sincere penitence, and Prince Andrew glanced so meekly now at her and now at Pierre, that she was gradually reassured. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 94. I hope you liked it. I'll now proceed to my reading of my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 94. God's Folk. The fount of purest wisdom is sometimes drawn from a contaminated source. So it is in Samuel Richardson's classic Clarissa, when the rapist rake Robert Lovelace, in conversation with his former friend John Belford, says that religion, if it has taken proper hold of the heart, is the most cheerful countenance maker in the world. Disciples of Dawkins may take issue with this sentiment, but Tolstoy certainly doesn't. He endorses it in today's reading when he returns us to the Bolkonsky estate at Bald Hills to meet the God's folk. As Prince Andrew and Pierre approach the estate, they espy what appears to be a few peasants scurrying away from them into hiding. These are the God's folk. They're hiding because they think it's the old prince who is returning home. Prince Andrew smirks and draws Pierre's attention to them, telling Pierre that his father consistently banishes them from Bald Hills, but Mary, in her only act of filial defiance, just as consistently invites them back in. These God's folk are impoverished pilgrims who beg their way to and from Christian holy places. Tolstoy found inspiration for these characters in real life, as his aunt often offered such people assistance, shelter, and sustenance on the family estate at Yasnaya Polyana. This chapter offers us an interesting opportunity to test Lovelace's aforementioned observation by comparing and contrasting the God's folk and Princess Mary on the one hand, and her brother Prince Andrew on the other. Let's start with Prince Andrew. We know he's not exactly the world's foremost spiritual man. He's probably an atheist, though his lofty thoughts on the lofty sky betray at least a modicum of belief in a supreme being. At any rate, his faith, if it exists at all, does not begin to approach the faith of his sister and her God's folk. And how does he behave towards these people of faith in today's chapter? He behaves rather poorly. Sure, Andrew's cold and ironical tone with Mary and the God's folk is part of a playful, long-established tete-a-tete between the two siblings, but still, he comes off as being rather mean-spirited and cruel. He's constantly pushing them, even insulting them. This sarcasm and ill-treatment indicates, for me at least, a profound unhappiness in Prince Andrew. And this despite his revelation during yesterday's chapter. On the other hand, we have the content and I would say even happy God's folk. These people have nothing, certainly not the material wealth of the Bolkonskys. Nevertheless, they're happy just to get by on their way to wherever their spiritual journeys take them. Even when Prince Andrew mocks them, they repay him with blessings. Then there's Princess Mary. Consider her charity. She internally expresses sympathy for Pierre, who she knows is going through so much. She also seeks to protect the poor God's folk from her brother's nasty remarks. This is the behavior of a well-adjusted and content person. The common denominator of joy between Mary and her God's folk is their faith, that cheerful countenance maker. Daily meditation. If a man is unhappy, remember that his unhappiness is his own fault, for God has made all men to be happy, to be free from perturbations. For this purpose he has given means to them, some things to each person as his own, and other things not as his own. Some things are subject to hindrance and compulsion and deprivation, and these things are not a man's own. But the things which are not subject to hindrances are his own, and the nature of good and evil, as it was fit to be done by him who takes care of us and protects us like a father, he has made our own. Epictetus, The Discourses. All right, so that concludes my reading and reflection on chapter 94. Hope you liked it. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are below. Your support is greatly appreciated. Tomorrow, we will be reading and reflecting on chapter 95 of War and Peace. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.